a few things in there. You'll notice that in God's calendar and in God's time, it's evening to morning. All right? The Jewish day begins at like 6 p.m. All right? And it starts in the evening and it goes 12 hours. All right? 6 a.m. the next morning. Then it's evening and morning. And the idea behind that is in Hebrew, it's Erev and Boker. And the idea is going from disorder or darkness to light. All right, and if you've ever gone someplace, I've done a lot of camping when I was younger, and we would visit a campground, and sometimes you leave on a Friday night and you wouldn't get there until it was dark. You set up your campsite, and in the morning, you get up and you're just like, whoa. You didn't notice all that stuff that was there. It's because the light, and God is the light, all right, He gives more and more understanding. We can see more and more the more light He gives us. And for our spirit man, that's what He wants to do. He says He gives us light. Jesus is the true light of the world. There's also here the idea behind a biblical and God's calendar, as he says here in Genesis 1:14, He says, "Let them be for signs, for seasons, and for days and years." All right? Now, the word seasons is the same word, Moed. That's the same word that over in Leviticus 23, which we'll turn over to there right now, and this is found in several places. But before we get into this, why is this important? Okay. The Lord Jesus Christ, in His first coming on His earthly ministry here, God set forth 7 feasts, 7 appointments that He gave the children of Israel rehearsals, those holy convocations to do. And God set from the beginning when the children of Israel were delivered out of Egypt from the bondage of Pharaoh, and Pharaoh and Egypt represent, Egypt would represent a world system of oppression, keeping them. They were slaves in Egypt, and the idea behind that is Pharaoh would be a representation of a godless world leader manipulated by the principalities of the heavens that are ungodly, really just demonically controlled. And the Passover, when the Lord Jesus gave the illustration, Yahweh God gave the illustration of that they were going to be delivered after the plagues of Egypt. What happened was, on the last plague, the death of the firstborn, God told Moses, He goes, this, and He gave them the instructions for the Passover lamb, and they were to follow these instructions perfectly. They were to pick a lamb without blemish for their household, and they were to, take it and kill it. These were all prophetic. Okay, and I want you to understand this. They all had prophetic implications because it was telling us something that was going to happen on God's calendar, God's appointment, His Moed, all right, that would happen someday on that feast day, okay, that calendar point, all right, and we'll spend a little time going through God's calendar. It's radically different than ours. Like right now, this is at this time of taping, we're in the year 2009. The Hebrew calendar, God's calendar, the Jewish calendar, the year is 5770. The months are different, and the year is different. And we have our calendar, all right, we go by a solar calendar, and we have some leap years to, 365 days. Jews go by they do their months lunar calendar, and their years are by a solar calendar. So they have both, and they reconcile their leap years by adding in an extra month, like every 19 years. That's how they have decided to correct that little imbalance there. But the signs, God's calendar, all right, he sets forth way back here in Genesis, the book of origins. He said that he put the heavens and the earth because they were, even the changing of the moon and the stars, and many of the ancient cultures worshiped the stars and made a perversion with their astrological religions, why we have such a, you'll find the crescent and the star and celestial type of things in many of the ancient, pagan cultures. You'll find it in ancient Babylon, and it moved out, and it finds its everywhere. You'll see the crescent in Islam. You'll see it in witchcraft. You see it in Hinduism. You see it in representations of the apparitions of Mary, and they all have a common thread. And you'll have to see our teaching on the crescent for further information on that. But God set those things in motion, and over time, God had his story. It was actually called the Way, from the time of Adam and Eve, that the references, the ancient Hebrew sages say that Adam, Seth, and Enoch taught their children by using the stars, okay? And this is called, in the Hebrew, the Matzaroth. And they would tell the coming of, it was a gospel presentation, so they knew there was this coming deliverer. And over the ages, what's happened from about the Tower of Babel, there was this perversion that was going on, and that's why you'll find many cultures, even though they have different languages and stuff, they have the same. They have zodiacs that are very similar. They have flood legends that are very similar. That's because as the peoples began to spread out after Noah's flood, there was they took with them these legends, which over time were perverted. And perversion means to corrupt and to change from its original intention. And that's what a perversion is. Okay. So, but the signs and the seasons, okay, the seasons is Moed, all right, God's appointments. Jesus Christ and his earthly ministry fulfilled, just like they were set forth in Exodus on the Passover. The Lord said, "This is the beginning of your year." So they actually have a civil New Year, and then they have like a religious New Year. That was the beginning. That was like their as a nation. That was their born again experience. They received the Lamb, and then they moved out. And then and even the apostles spoke of, as they went through the Red Sea, that they were baptized into Moses. And so there's all that rich symbolism, but they're also all prototypes of God's appointments, okay? And God's, in Leviticus 23, God lays out these 7 feasts, these 7 biblical appointments,